Welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Liberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast, so if you're a Minnesota sports fan, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're a Timberwolves fan, smash the like button on this video because the Timberwolves have now evened the series with the Memphis Grizzlies at 2 games apiece, albeit it was just an absolute nail-biter all the way down to the finish in Game 4. Desmond Bane was unconscious for the Grizzlies. Dylan Brooks hit a few wild shots as well. But the Wolves remained steady. Ant got injured early in the game that I was worried would just, sink us, but he ended up coming back. And Cat played his best postseason game of his career, which was great to see. And Jordan McLaughlin, the unsung hero for the Minnesota Timberwolves, coming off the bench and just having a massive impact. So we can dive into all that. But my main takeaway, Liberta, is that I know it's only tied 2-2. The Timberwolves got smoked in Game 2, and they really choked it away in Game 3. I mean, just blowing two massive leads. I think 2 25-point leads, if I'm not mistaken, in that game.
Yep.
So, I think for the most part, the Wolves have outplayed the Grizzlies in this series. And I think the real turning point, obviously, is Game 3, where we definitely should have won that game. We could be up 3-1 right now. And just some complete lapses mentally and, Chris Finch even, not calling timeouts during runs, just kind of letting these runs happen to the Timberwolves. Like there was definitely some things in that Game 3 that the Wolves lapsed in. And I feel like obviously that's going to happen with a young team, a team that's inexperienced in the playoffs. But I think that they responded well in Game 4. And I've just been impressed that I think I saw a stat they've beaten the Grizzlies in 10 or 11 out of the 16 quarters so far. So that's huge as well. So what have kind of been your thoughts here as we've watched these last couple games and the Wolves were able to even it back up as we head back to Memphis here?
Even despite that Game 3, I would say the big theme here is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you this all along. After just that painful way to lose Game 3 happened and all the criticism, all the flack the Wolves team took from literally everybody and their dog that pays attention to the NBA, I didn't know how you'd pick yourself up from that. Like leading by 26 in the second quarter, like it's one thing if it's one lead because, like, for instance, we were up by 26 a couple minutes into the second quarter, and then they trim it down to 7 by halftime. But then once you bring it back up again to 25, it's like, okay, we should be able to,
just bury them.
Yeah, just bury them. Put this one away. Let's go up 2-1 at home here. But no, that didn't happen, and we just went ice cold in the fourth quarter. 21-0 run for the Grizzlies, just a nightmare scenario playing out. And it's like you said, part of that has to do, obviously, with the players. I mean, these guys are on the court playing the game, but our stars got to take over and take control of the situation in some regard. But then you got your coach who needs to call timeouts at very timely spots, and he didn't do that. And I really am kind of surprised by that just because I remember recognizing that right away in Game 1. I thought that was kind of a sneaky thing, was how good Finch was at that because the Wolves basically played with a lead from wire to wire in that game. I know there's a spell in there. The Grizzlies got up maybe 2 or something, whatever it was. But like he did a good job basically timing his timeouts. And we stay in the lead that way just because he killed the momentum for Memphis, and we just didn't do that in Game 3. But anyways, all that aside, it's like coming to this Game 4 in a do-or-die situation, backs against the wall, like you have to have this one, or this one's probably ended in 5. Like going down 3-1 and then going back to Memphis and having to win 3 in a row, just the thought of that, no way. So this was a huge moment for us to basically turn the tide back in our favor and feel good about what we're doing here again. And I got to say, it was just they grinded it out. The Grizzlies gave them, honestly, everything they could, in my opinion, just because they shot 48.8% from the field. Yeah. And I remember hearing a stat the other day, the Grizzlies in the regular season were 35-1 when they shot at least 47.5% as a team. So it's like they never lose those games. So I think for us to overcome all of that and have contributions from guys like J-Mac off the bench was just massive. And I mean, in some ways, like, it's a home game, so like we got to have it. But in a way, you got to think we almost kind of stole it just because it's like their star players showed out. I know Ja, we'll get into this a little bit. Ja wasn't, but like their other guys, like Dylan Brooks, their second leading scorer during the season, like he was there. And obviously Desmond Bane was just ridiculous in 3-point range. That dude couldn't miss. So it's like, in a way, you feel good about that. You survived a game where Bane was just lights out from downtown. It's like you don't. No matter what team you're playing, like when a guy is just going off like that, you're not usually able to withstand that. So, I mean, again, the overarching theme here, though, is definitely resilience and overcoming the Game 3 loss. I mean, there's a lot to like here after this Game 4 win. Regardless of how the series ends, I think this was an impressive statement by this group.
For sure. And now it guarantees it going 6 games. You get another game at Target Center.
Exactly.
Hopefully, maybe you steal one in Game 5, but at least if you don't, you come back to Target Center with a chance to push it to Game 7, and then all bets are off in that scenario. But yeah, just a super impressive response by this Wolves team. And I think that's, like you mentioned, we kind of stole that game just with how hot the Grizzlies were shooting. But honestly, I think, obviously we won by 1 point, so it's razor thin margin, but also it's the number 1 offense versus the number 2 offense in the NBA. And that slight difference, I think, made the difference last night because, the Wolves had Cat and Ant going off, and McLaughlin had a great game. And, D'Lo didn't play well. Beasley didn't even take a shot, I don't think, which blew my mind. McDaniels didn't play very well. Mm-hmm. So it was really top heavy for the Wolves, led by Cat and Ant. But just that the Wolves having the number 1 offense in the NBA, they just slightly out-edged the number 2 offense in the NBA. And that's really what it comes down to, because Memphis is a pretty good defensive team. The Wolves are, just a slightly above average defensive team, I would say. Mm-hmm. But we can get into Ja here too, because the Wolves have done a fantastic job at containing Ja. I mean, he's going to get to the basket. He's a great finisher. We know all that, but when you can force him to take jump shots, I mean, sign me up for that all day. When I see Ja in the corner, wide open, and he's shooting that 3, I'm like, give me that. That's like, it's kind of like when you'd watch Dwayne Wade in the playoffs and you're like, you kind of let him shoot the 3s because he's not exactly a great 3-point shooter. So there's certain players that are like that. Like if you keep Ja out of the paint, then other guys are standing wide open too if Ja gets in the paint. So it's like, obviously Desmond Bane was impossible to contain. I mean, he's hitting shots from 36 feet or something ridiculous, like damn near half court. And, it's crazy, these shots that he's hitting. And it's insane how good of a shooter he is for how buff he is. Like he's just got these massive arms, but he's just nothing but net every single shot he takes. It's insane. But, whatever Finch has done, whatever, Mike and Nori, the assistants, have done, it's just been fantastic, I think, so far. And I think what's really hurt the Wolves is when they blew it in Game 3, the offense just simply went cold. Like you said, they stopped hitting shots. They kind of just stopped running an offense in general. Cat being in foul trouble certainly didn't help. And obviously that's a huge theme, him staying out of foul trouble. They win games. That's the biggest no-brainer of all time. I think we've talked about this in our group chat too with our buddy Jackson, who's a diehard Timberwolves fan. The Wolves and Grizzlies are very, very even. And I think the Wolves maybe even just have a little bit of more top tier talent. Like Ja is probably the best player in the series. But when you look across the board at Ant, Cat, and D'Lo, our top 3 is definitely better than their top 3, which consists of Ja, Bane, and probably Jaren Jackson. But
that's it. So
Jaren Jackson's had a pretty rough series. So, obviously we haven't gotten much out of D'Lo, but I think the Wolves are very close, if not better, talent-wise. But the problem is Memphis just plays smarter. They have more of an established system, as they've been there for a couple of years now under Taylor Jenkins. So I think the Wolves are just slightly behind in terms of the build than what the Grizzlies are. But I think they've been kind of catching up too, because they've shown that they can hang with this team and they can outperform them when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of love that you threw in D'Lo there for a second. I'm kind of wondering, it depends if you want to look at the glass half full or glass half empty. If you're looking at it half empty, obviously with his stretch of play, I mean, he's just not hitting shots in any sort of efficient rate at all. Yeah. So it's what's going to change? But on the other hand, it's glass half full. I mean, he was amazing against the Grizzlies this season in 4 regular season games. So it's is he due for some breakout performance where he just kind of carries us to a win, or at least leads the charge? So if that would happen in a Game 5, 6, or 7, I mean, that's monumental. That helps you clinch a series or put yourself in a great spot to advance. So really, that could be on the horizon. I really hope it is. And I mean, just in the series in general, it's really, do you want to look at the glass half full or half empty? Because it's a half empty. It's man, we could just easily be up 3-1 right now if we just didn't sputter in the fourth quarter, getting outscored 37-12 in Game 3. But I mean, glass half full. Now here we are. We're tied 2-2, and we probably would have taken that before the series started. Make this a 3-game set to end it, and give ourselves a real chance to win it in advance and continue this over-exceeding expectation season. So I'm really fascinated to see what's going to transpire in Game 5, just because we're going back to a hostile environment again. The Grizzlies will be juiced. I think it's probably a loss if I had to guess, but if you manage to somehow find a way, whatever that might look like, grind it out and go back to Target Center on a Friday night to clinch a series, man, that would be something.
That would be absolutely wild. And it's crazy because like you said, it's how you look at it, half full or half empty. I like to think that we're in a good spot. I mean, Game 3 we should have had, but then it's like if you win Game 3, it maybe is Game 4 a letdown. Like it's impossible to know.
That's a good point, yeah, because you're approaching the game completely differently when you're going into Game 4 up 2-1 or down 2-1, because you can bring a lot more urgency when you're down 2-1.
Exactly. So we were way more desperate in Game 4, and you have to think too. Like you mentioned D'Lo has struggled. Like you have to think you're going to get a D'Lo game here at some point. I mean, he's been kind of a no-show. He hasn't really initiated things himself. He's taken some horrible shots.
Yes.
Beasley not shooting a single shot this last game. I'm not sure what's up with that.
Yeah, that seems weird. I mean, that's a high volume shooter. Even when he's not going, he's still putting up the shots. So I don't know what that was.
He had a great Game 1. Jaden McDaniels had a great Game 1. I would expect those guys to bounce back here at some point.
Yeah.
TP and Jordan McLaughlin have played phenomenal off the bench, I think. Yeah. TP just in his role. He'll hit a couple threes. He plays fantastic defense. I swear to God, he draws a charge or two every single game, which is huge. Get those Memphis guys in foul trouble, which we've done a good job of this series. So you have to think at some point, and now with Anthony kind of popping up again, it's like, well, is he going to be, even close? I mean, he finished the game pretty strong. He had 24 points, had a nice dunk in there, but you have to kind of wonder about his health. So maybe does a D'Lo step in and play better, and you get better bench contributions. So there's gonna be all sorts of moving parts here, I think.
Yeah, and here's the thing: looking at it, realistically speaking, even taking a Wolves bias out of it and kind of looking at it from a 1,000-foot view, and what the Wolves got to do to win the series and advance to the next round. And I think if you look at our wins and what the consistencies are really in games 1 and 4, is that both Cat and Ant showed up, and then somebody off the bench did, or at least one person.
Yeah.
So I think when you have a J-Mac who's, coming out of nowhere and hitting 4 threes and basically being a bucket when it's just huge in those bench minutes, just because it's we need somebody that's going to be out there that's going to initiate the offense, generate offense, and just make it happen where we can stay afloat, where we can rest our guys even just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a long time. Cat and Ants are going to play 40-plus minutes, no problem.
As it should, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In a playoff game, that's what you do. But I think we just need somebody in each game, whether that be a James Heck again, or it's the other J. McDaniels, or it's you're talking about TP, you're talking about Beasley, just somebody out there hitting some shots to just not even build our lead necessarily, but just keep us afloat so we don't go on these ugly stretches where we get outplayed and then the lead our starters built in the first quarter just disappears like that or something. So or the start of the fourth quarter, I feel like that's the most glaring too, when we're rolling out Nas out there and he's picking up fouls or just not hitting shots deep in the paint. Man, we just got to have somebody out there that's gonna, I don't know, get buckets, I guess. Well, Ant and Cat down there at the floor, just so we're not just sinking.
Yeah, I completely agree. Nas has been a complete liability this entire series, which is unfortunate because he actually played well against Memphis in the regular season. So I get they're probably defending him differently and stuff like that. But that's been unfortunate just because Cat probably does need a bit more of a break. And then when he's in foul trouble, it really hurts us when Nas isn't playing well.
Yes.
So, that's tough. I think they really got to upgrade that position this offseason. We'll get into that more down the road too, but Nas is probably the biggest glaring weakness on this team right now. And then Beasley, if he's not shooting, or if he's shooting horribly, he's kind of a weakness too, because he just doesn't bring a whole lot else when he's on the floor. But at least with McDaniels and TP, you're going to get defense for sure. McDaniels does get in foul trouble, but shooting, they can both shoot. So it's I trust him. It's crazy. You'd think Chris Finch would tighten up the rotations, but he's still playing 10 guys, sometimes 11 if Jalen Noel gets in the game. I mean, he's still playing a deep bench, and honestly, I trust basically all these guys except Naz Reid to come in right now and contribute.
For sure. Honestly, I was kind of surprised. I felt like we'd see TP earlier in that last game, game 4, where I feel like he didn't check in until halfway through the second quarter. I'm like, this is kind of weird because
Mm-hmm.
at least, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I remember seeing him in the game, and it's like kind of wondering why. Just because, like you said, he'll be out there drawing a couple charges, and that's huge against basically anybody in their starting 5.
Yep.
And then his ability to space the floor and hit threes when they're there wide open on the wing or in the corner or something, like that's a huge upgrade to our team in those bench minutes where we just gotta hold it over for our starters to rest and come back in with a lead still intact. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't played more minutes. Maybe he will play more down the road. And I know he's kind of had a lingering injury. I know he's not technically on the injury report, and like it's been kind of day to day, but or it was at least at the end of the regular season. So I kind of would like to see him get more minutes, I guess, but it all depends. Like I don't mind riding the hot hand off the bench either.
Yeah, I agree. And Vanderbilt's been kind of an interesting one too, just because like he hasn't played a ton in some games, and I mean he doesn't bring us a whole lot offensively, so they just kind of leave him wide open. But there's been a few times where like D'Lo's been able to find him in the dunker spot, and he just gets an easy dunk.
He got a lot of those, I felt like, in game 4.
Yeah, I think he did too. And so, I mean, we could always use his energy, I think, defensively on the glass. Like
the glass is huge. I think that's the reason he's got to play a decent amount of minutes.
So I feel like on a night where if you have 2 of the big 3 rolling, I think Vanderbilt could play a little more just to make sure we keep hitting those boards. Because I feel like when he plays more, we tend to win the rebound battle against Memphis. So, and the other one too is Patrick Beverley. Like he obviously played great in game 4. He had that great first half in game 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's been doing some good things, but there's also been times too where I think he's trying to run the offense too much. Like, he kind of needs to know his role a little bit. Like you're not one of the, big dogs when you're out there. So it's like, that's kind of one of the issues I've had too, is just, I think he's trying to do a little too much, but if D'Lo's not playing well, then, a guy like Pat Bev probably takes it upon himself to step up a little bit too. But
true. I feel like Pat Bev, a little bit going too rogue for me sometimes. That makes me a little uncomfortable. It makes me feel like we should take him off the floor. But then sometimes he'll go out there and make a really nice play. It's like nobody else on our team was going to do something like that.
Exactly. So it's interesting. But before we wrap up here, let's just talk about Ant. I mean, he's been mostly fantastic these playoffs. He had that knee injury scare, but he was able to bounce back and play well. Are you concerned about how he'll be able to maybe finish off this series? Do you think that knee injury is going to limit him in terms of maybe his driving? We saw that throughout the regular season, that when his knee injury popped up, he was less aggressive going to the basket. Didn't seem to change things much in game 4 when he got hurt, but I'm wondering after a couple of days if that knee feels a little worse, if maybe things change a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of worry about it a little bit. Like you said, it could be a lingering issue, but at the same time, I think he's going to leave it all out there. So whatever that might be, obviously not 100%, but still, it's just I trust him enough that he's going to still go out there and be Ant, maybe not quite like peak Ant, but still good Ant, where it's going to be able to, or he's going to be able to put in a good performance for our team towards winning another game in the series. So in that regard, like I trust whether he's hurt or not, I think he'll still put forth a good performance. But it's just it kind of sucks for him that this is probably something that's going to obviously follow him for the rest of this postseason, however long it might last.
Exactly. So now that we're down to basically a best of 3 series, how are you feeling, Liberto? Do you think they can get the job done, or how many games do you think this goes, and who do you think ends up winning? I can't remember how I think you predicted Wolves in 7, and I might have predicted Memphis in 7 before this series started.
Yeah, that sounds right. I might as well roll with it then. I mean, I was gonna say, I feel like this series, I'm pretty confident we'll go 7, that the teams will split these next 2 games and it'll come down to that decisive, best game in sports. But it's just, I was gonna flip it to the Grizzlies just because I feel like we don't have enough juice in the tank for it. But at the same time, I said Wolves at 7, why not? Let's stick to it. And I think we do certainly have the ability, and we're plenty capable to win the series, but it's just playing, staying within ourselves and honestly just making smart plays, not fouling, especially picking up the stupid ones that just drives you nuts, especially when Cat gets like his offensive fouls that are obviously offensive fouls, and he's going back down the floor, he's complaining about it. Like, I don't want to see any of that. So it's just staying smart, making good plays, and honestly rising to the occasion. I know I'm pulling out every cliche in the book, feels like right now, but it's just getting those crunch time moments at the end of the fourth quarter in these massive games and just not falling apart and the wheels falling off. I mean, we just gotta play our game, and I think we'll be fine. I think we're just as good as Memphis, but it's just putting forth a good effort and it all coming together at the right time, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm going to change my pick actually to Wolves in 7 too. I've been pessimistic kind of this whole time, but I just think, I know we blew it in game 3, but really we outplayed them for a huge chunk of that game.
Sure.
Game 2 was a disaster because the refs ruined it from the beginning, from both sides. I'm not saying they were against the Wolves, but there was no flow to that game. It kind of screwed things up from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
The Wolves were impressive in game 1, impressive in game 4. I don't know. It's a great matchup for the Wolves. I think, if Cat can just keep that same mentality going where he's not going to let things get in his head, even after a win in game 4, if his head's on straight and he's playing well, they're unstoppable, I think, against this Memphis team. Because as much as they want to try Xavier Tillman or Kyle Anderson or Brandon Clark, I mean, these guys can't really defend Cat. So unless they're, just foul baiting and flopping and, drawing charges and stuff like that. But I don't know. I shouldn't say I trust Cat, but I have faith that he'll be able to hold it together here and we could get a couple more wins. If we could steal game 5 in Memphis, I mean, this thing could be over in 6 because Target Center is going to be nuts.
Yeah.
So,
I love that home court advantage that we have when we play these home games right now. I mean, the crowd is just sensational. I mean, you can hear them like loud and clear on the broadcast, and it's music to my ears.
It's big time, man. I would have never imagined Target Center being like that in a million years.
I know, right?
I mean, you and I were at that play-in game. I've never experienced a Target Center crowd like that in my life. Like every Target Center game I've been to has been lifeless. It's just been completely dead.
I know, but that was alive, and that's how it's been for all of these games. I mean, the games 3 and 4, I think the fans brought it, and I think that helps this team a lot. I feel like that a young team such as ourselves just feeds off of it.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be interesting. This is fantastic experience for the Wolves, no matter how it plays out here. If you could somehow, pull off the upset and win a series, just massive for the development of this team. Albeit you'll probably have to run into the buzzsaw Golden State Warriors, who are up 3-1 on Denver. But
cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, exactly. Can't worry about that right now. So we would definitely take a series win. We would definitely take a game 7.
Yes.
Or Wolves in 6. I'd be okay with that too. So
yeah, I gotta get that Wolves in 6 chant going again.
Yes, absolutely. So we should probably get out of here. This has been a long one, but that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and let us know your thoughts below. What do you make of the first 4 games of this Wolves Grizzlies series? Do you like the Timberwolves' chances? And I guess what are you expecting going forward here? As we got 3 games left, as it's basically a best-of-3 series. So until next time, thanks for watching.